Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Franchise Hockey Manager 9 playthrough of the Chicago Blackhawks. We are at the beginning of the 2025 to 2026 season, beginning our fourth season as the general manager slash coach of the Chicago Blackhawks. 3 seasons we've had. First year, just missed out on the playoffs. Second year, we won a very surprising Stanley Cup championship. And now we're coming off of last season when we snuck into the playoffs, but were bounced in the first round. So the fact that we've already won a championship in the first 3 years of what we believed was a rebuild is a positive thing. But we really need to start stringing some consistently strong seasons together. Feel like we should be in a pretty decent position to do that. Ownership expects us to be in the top half of the league, although they think we are still in a rebuild at this point. Kind of an eventful offseason for the team. Picked Victor Eklund in the first round, a player who's probably still a few years away from making an impact at the NHL level. Our first big free agent signing was the versatile winger Travis Konechny. Then, unfortunately, there was an off field incident involving our longtime superstar and 4-time Stanley Cup champion, 1-time NHL MVP Patrick Kane. A very serious off ice incident that basically turned the entire team against him. We were kind of trying to repair the clubhouse, and it wasn't going particularly well, although time was healing some of the wounds. And then, right before the beginning of the preseason, we noticed that Mitch Marner, who in our view was the top free agent available, had somehow not been able to come to agreements with anybody, and we were able to sign him to a contract for about what we were paying Kane. So we then traded Kane away. Net, I would say a 28-year-old Marner at this point is better than a 36-year-old Kane, and certainly someone that we can hopefully build around for the next several seasons, but still obviously took a hit to fan happiness moving on from the big star, future Hall of Famer, despite the fact that he had really angered a lot of people. But team harmony is now back up to an acceptable level since we moved on from Mr. Kane. Still have a couple clicks that we're dealing with as the season begins. Other than Kane and Konechny, not a lot of changes to our roster from last year. Did bring up the young defenseman Kevin Korchinski, who hopefully will contribute for us. Re-signed Alex Formenton. We already mentioned bringing on Konechny and Marner, which with the departure of Kane definitely really changes our right wing position. And then we just recently picked up Cole Sillinger on waivers. We had to move on from a longtime left winger with our team to kind of clear the cap space to bring on Sillinger. So that was not the easiest decision in the world for us. I could show you the transactions log. Taylor Radish. I was trying to remember whether it was Trevor or Taylor. Taylor Radish is who we had for the past few years. Was a pretty versatile player, but he is older than Sillinger, so the fact that we were able to pick up Sillinger, I think, was a good move for us. We ended up messing up the trade. It was late at night. We were tired when we were recording, so instead of getting something interesting for him, we ended up getting Zach Whitecloud, who we ended up trading away for a 7th-round pick. So that was not all that great. We did get a 3rd-rounder from the Stars for Patrick Kane, so got a little bit of ammunition for the upcoming draft in that deal. But all in all, I've got higher expectations than I think ownership does. They want to finish in the top half of the league, which would clearly mean a playoff spot. I'd certainly like to be better than that. I'd like to not be coming down to the final games of the season to make a playoff spot. And I do think with the additions of Marner and Konechny and Sillinger, and then bringing back Fermenton on the front line, we hopefully will be able to generate somewhat more offense than we have in the past couple of years. I think that with Mackenzie Blackwood backed up by Jacob Skarek at goal, we're pretty good there. And then still with the likes of Forsling, Hughes, Jones, Korchinski, Anderson, Hronek, and Regula, I do like our defense a lot and think that we should be pretty good at keeping the opponent's puck from getting into the net this year, and hopefully we'll be able to generate more offense than we did a season ago. And a rough start to the season for the Blackhawks. 2-2-1 record, just won 8-2 in Buffalo. But Dylan Larkin, who has 4 goals and an assist in the first 5 games of the year, going to be out for a torn rotator cuff for 3 to 4 months. So huge hit to the team to lose our most dynamic offensive player, and he's going to be gone for most of this year. Hopefully we'll be able to stay healthy and stay in contention. Have him back for the playoffs. You may remember last season for us, he ended up getting hurt in the 81st game of the season and then missed our playoff run, which was only one series where we lost, but has scored 45 and 53 goals for us his first 2 years with us. Excellent offensive player, obviously, with some great physical ratings. And unfortunately, we are going to be without the dynamic scorer for a good chunk of the season. And it looks like Alex Formenton has a bruised toe in day-to-day, but clearly the loss of Larkin is a lot more significant for this Blackhawks team. Have to figure out who to bring up from him. Should mean a little more consistent playing time for the youngster Gavin Hayes, who has 3 points in the 3 games that he has played for us this year. And we'll bring Lucas Reichel back up to the big club, a guy who has played with us a bit over the last couple of seasons. Taking a look at his career stats with us, even before we took over the Blackhawks, he was up in the 21 to 22 season. We had him up in the 23 to 24 season for 25 games and then 9 games last year. Has not quite developed as we might have hoped he would have. You can see looking at his profile, still a 2-star player. We still see 3.5-star potential, but he's 23 years old at this point, and he's got another 1.5 years left with us till the end of his contract. So hopefully we'll get a little bit of production out of him. Not sure how consistent the playing time that he's going to get at the NHL level is going to be, but kind of the type of player where we've got to figure out what we've got with him over the next, close to 2 seasons before we have to make a decision on whether we want to bring him back or not. Would think that we would be trending towards not giving him a big contract extension when he's eligible, but we're going to have 3 to 4 months where he's going to be getting at least occasional time with the NHL team over the coming months. So we'll know a lot more about him, come February than we do today. And the good news is the Blackhawks are starting to string some wins together, have the record up to 4-2-1. But Victor Arvidsson, another one of our better offensive players, strained PCL, going to keep him out for 1 to 2 months. We could delay the treatment, but it's October 15th. Would rather just hope that we can hold things together over the next month and a half or so without both him and Dylan Larkin. Hopefully we can find a way to generate some offense. Will be a good test of some of our new additions and some of our younger players. But we're not going to delay treatment on Arvidsson and going to put him right onto the injured list also. And going to head back down into the AHL and see who we've got that hopefully can contribute here with the big club. And another youngster who you're probably familiar with if you've been watching the series, Colton Dock, going to be back on the NHL squad because of the injury to Arvidsson. Doc played 25 games with us last year when he made his NHL debut. You can see he wasn't particularly effective. 6 points in those 25 games, -3 while on the ice. Didn't get a ton of ice time with us. Has potential to probably get a little more now with a year of additional experience and the fact that we do have some injuries, particularly at the center position right now. And despite the injuries, it's been a respectable start for the Blackhawks. First place in the Central Division with 13 points through 10 games, although you can see we have the fewest points of any division leader, so not playing exceptional hockey with our 6-3-1 record, but given the fact that arguably our two best or our two most dynamic offensive players, arguably, and certainly among the top handful of our top offensive players are on the injured list for the foreseeable future. If we can keep kind of playing at this pace, that would be a pretty good result. And some good news after losing 2 in a row to fall to 6-5-1. Arvidsson is going to resume skating already. Should be back in about 2 weeks. So it looks like we are going to be on the potentially short end of the amount of time that we're going to have lost him to that strained PCL. So that should be pretty positive for us offensively. And we could definitely use the help. As I mentioned, we've lost 2 in a row, and it was 5-4 at Colorado, and then we got routed 7-0 by Seattle. So would be nice if we can win these last 2 games in the month of October at Nashville and then home against the Kings on Halloween to feel like we've got the season off to a respectable start. And it was a rough finish to the month of October for the Blackhawks. We lost both of those games that I'd mentioned. We were hoping to win them both to finish off the month. Instead, we lost them both. So at this point, the Blackhawks have lost 4 in a row. 3 of them on the road, but the 4-1 loss to the Kings at home yesterday. Not a great way to finish off a month of October. You can see that the schedule for the month of November does look a lot better. We've only got 5 road games for the month as opposed to 9 home games. So would hope that when we're coming out of the month of November, we can be in a much better position than we are right now, because right now we're 6-7-1, so we have a losing record, and we'd also be out of the playoffs if the season were to end today. Fortunately, we've still got almost 70 games of hockey to play, and hopefully with some home cooking over the month of November, we'll be able to be in a much better position a month from now than we are today, particularly if we get Arvidsson back in a week or 2. And mixed results, not surprisingly, on our valuation for the month of October. Owner Rocky Wirtz is satisfied, but the fans aren't really thrilled right now. Fortunately, it's Rocky Wirtz rather than the fans that will determine our future, and he says there's no need to worry about our job right now. One of the clicks broke up also, so even though as far as job security, the fans are not particularly happy with 4 losses in a row. Team harmony moving in a better direction, good now, and we just have this small clique involving Dylan Holloway, Dylan Larkin, and Gavin Hayes. And the month of November has gotten off to a great start for the Blackhawks. 5 consecutive wins and a lot of close games. 3-2 wins on the road at the Devils in Florida, and a 2-1 win at home against Pittsburgh. But now we've put ourselves in really good shape for the month. Only 2 road games left this month, coming up this next coming weekend at Arizona and at Minnesota. But other than that, we've got 7 home games over the course of the rest of the month. So should be a good opportunity for this team to continue to do some damage in the standings, back to third in the division, and in position for a playoff spot at this point, but would clearly like it to be a stronger position than it is today. You can see Mackenzie Blackwood, 9 wins on the leaderboard there. Having a pretty good year so far, although his goals against of 3.22 and his save percentage of 901, not as high as they've been in the past, but the 9-4 record is certainly what we'd love to see. His backup, Jakob Skarek, obviously not playing quite as well on the year. He is 2-3, as you can see, with a 450 goals against and a 886 save percentage. So the youngster, although he's 26 now, not really that much of a youngster anymore, but the guy who we did sign this past off season to hopefully be our backup for the next several seasons, not doing that well at this point. And obviously we're going to have a decision to make on Blackwood at some point. He's in the last year of his contract. Take a quick look at what he is looking for. Close to $7 million a year seems pretty fully priced to me. Definitely not a contract that I feel that we have to chase right now. As the season gets along further, we'll see if maybe there's anyone interesting out on the trade block, and then obviously going to be most interested in figuring out who might be free agents next year, and if there's some other talented goalies, certainly could be in a position where we would potentially move on from Blackwood. Looking at our top scorers, Bo Horvat has been filling some of the void by losing the big offensive players, Dylan Larkin and Victor Arvidsson. 19 points through the first 19 games for him. Mitch Marner also off to a good start with his Chicago career, 9 goals and 8 assists in his first 19 games, and getting some more offense out of Luke Kunin this year than we did last season when he made his debut with the Blackhawks. 15 points, including 6 goals through the first 19 games of the year. Kevin Korchinski, the young defenseman, we have gotten him action in 14 games thus far. He's -4 on the season, but he was actually -7 just a few games ago, so it seems like he is playing a little better. And with the veteran Caleb Jones at -9 when he's been on the ice, I think that definitely gives the youngster Korchinski opportunity to earn some more playing time. Colton Dach and Lucas Reichel, who we brought up because of those injuries, neither one of them has scored a point, and they have not got much playing time either. Clearly, barring another injury when Arvidsson is hopefully back in hopefully less than a week, we'll be sending one of those guys back down to the AHL. And a great game for Blackwood as we win our 6th in a row. Won the game 1-0 despite giving up 40 shots. So Blackwood really stood on his head. Had to go to overtime to win it. Kunin assisted by Korchinski and Marner. So some important names on our team involved there. And Mackenzie Blackwood with the 43 saves outplayed Jake Ottinger for the Stars. So team's been playing real well lately. Looks like Arvidsson is almost ready, which is some more good news. Will be nice to have him back in the lineup. Hopefully can help us generate even more offense than we have been recently. Taking a look quickly at Team Harmony. Obviously hasn't been too long since we checked in at the end of October, but things are going good. Just have that one click. And certainly job security after a 5-game winning streak is moving in a better direction for us in terms of the fan happiness and also keeping ownership happy. And Arvidsson is now ready to come off the IL. Not going to start him today because he's still not totally fit, and we've got back-to-back games, so we'll save him for tomorrow at Arizona. We're going to send Reichel down to the AHL, and it'll give Colton Dach a chance to potentially get a little bit of playing time next couple of days because with the back-to-backs, would think that both Arvidsson and Doc will end up being in the lineup tomorrow for us. And our winning streak finally came to an end in the first of those back-to-back games. Lost at home to Nashville 5-3. Bo Horvat, unfortunately, a gluteus strain that's going to impact him for 1 to 2 weeks. So in an effort to just be careful, hopefully not let things get exacerbated further, we're going to put him on the IL and head right back down to the AHL. Bring Mr. Reichel back. And the reeling Blackhawks have now lost 3 in a row after 7-4 loss on the road at Minnesota. Caleb Jones, the defenseman, has got a sports hernia. Going to keep him out for 2 to 3 weeks. Certainly won't delay treatment at this point in the season on something like that. So going to move him to the IL also, and we will look to the AHL for some additional help. But after that real good start to the month of November, obviously things haven't gone well over the last 4 days with 3 losses in 4 days. But the rest of the month we are at home in Chicago at the United Center, so hopefully can win the majority of these 5 games we've got before we get to December. And the Blackhawks playing a little better as we get near the end of the month. Lost that first game on the homestand to Vancouver, but have now won 2 in a row pretty easily against the Blues and the Red Wings. Got the Bruins and the Maple Leafs coming up to round out the month. Team is starting to get a little bit healthier. Caleb Jones ready to return to the ice. Bo Horvat getting close also. Defenseman Rasmus Anderson going to be out for a few days with a bruised back. He's actually probably the biggest potential free agent that we have coming up. Look at the guys who are on the final year of their contract. We also already talked about Blackwood. Obviously, that's a huge free agent coming up also. And then Ross Colton is a guy who hasn't really lived up to the contract we gave him, a little over $4 million a year. And he is going to be turning 30 before next season starts. Just hasn't been as dynamic offensively as we had hoped. And he's actually looking for a raise. So I think it's unlikely that we'll bring him back. Rasmus Anderson, probably looking for some pretty good money also. $5.8 million for 3 years. Do think that he's a pretty important guy on the blue line for us. Some pretty good physical ratings, useful offensively, sound mentally, and is a pretty solid defensive player. You know, he's an old school defenseman is his best role. And you know, he's been a pretty useful player for us since we picked him up in the trade from the Blackhawks. Plus 12 last year and plus 5 this year through 26 games, getting a lot of ice time. You can see almost 24 minutes a game this year. I think we are going to just try to get him locked up now, if at all possible. Not going to offer him exactly what he's looking for. If you know me well, you know that we rarely, if ever, do that. But if we can get him for $5.35 million for the 3 years that he's looking for, I think that would be a pretty good contract for us. Let's see what he thinks of that. It's about $450,000 a year less than he's looking for. He actually probably won't go for that. He may not go for this either, but we'll put him up to $5.45 million. Get a little closer to what he's looking for. And he wants just a little more, 5.51. I like those round numbers, so we'll see if we can get him for $5.5 million. And he's willing to think about it. So even though he's banged up for the next few days, would like to get the important defenseman who's typically for us on our top line with Quinn Hughes. Want to make sure that we've got him coming back next year. As I talked about, we should have plenty of money because both Colton and Blackwood, who are also making pretty good money this year, are headed to free agency. As I said, I think it's going to be pretty unlikely we'll bring Colton back. Blackwood is a possibility, but he's looking for a lot of money next year, so going to have some interesting decisions to make. And good news that Horvat is almost ready, and good news that Rasmus Andersson did get the deal signed. So probably, certainly one of our two most important potential free agents, him and Blackwood. Good to have Rasmus Andersson locked up into his close to his mid-30s, quite honestly. Could be his last contract with us, but have definitely been investing heavily in the Blue Liners over the course of this playthrough, and want to make sure that Andersson is part of this team for the foreseeable future, and at this point he certainly will be. And the good news is that Rasmus Andersson is ahead of schedule getting back from that injury, and it's really the only good news we have because Filip Hronek going to be out for 1 to 2 months with a calf laceration. We're not going to delay treatment there, and we did just get crushed 6-1 by the Bruins yesterday. So the injuries, have been an issue. Certainly Larkin is the most significant. Horvat will be back hopefully very soon. Caleb Jones still out another couple weeks. So our defense is going to be a little bit banged up with the fact that Andersson is still day-to-day, but he can play, and Hronek is going to be heading to the injury list. So going to be even more reliant on the youngsters like Korchinski and Regula, as well as potentially Adam Wilsby, who we brought up originally when we put Caleb Jones on the IL a bit back. And the month of November finished off well. Bo Horvat ready to come off of the IL. Rasmus Andersson looks like he's ready to be 100%. And we got a big win against the Maple Leafs to finish off the month at home. One of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. You can see we'd be in the playoffs if the season ended today. But both of the wild cards in the Western Conference would be out in the Pacific Division, and we're only up a point on the Wild, and they've got a game in hand on us. So a tenuous playoff position at that, but have played well enough in the month of November that if the season were to end today, we would be in the tournament for the Stanley Cup, which is a little bit of progress compared to where we were a month ago, but clearly having a lot of games on home ice helped us on that front. As I mentioned, Horvat ready to come back, so we're going to put him obviously right back onto the active roster, and we are going to send Reichel back down, have to waive him, but I just don't think he's a big part of our future plans. And he's also, when we look at our training, Colton Dock is at least playing at the right level. Reichel was not, so it also wasn't the best for his development for him to be up here. You can see with the injuries and defensemen, we did have to call up the youngster Wyatt Kaiser, who has not played for us yet and is also at the wrong level. But we're short on players right now, so we need to do what we need to do. And despite the good month of November, the Jets, who still have a game in hand on us, are now tied with us in points. So we would actually be on the outside looking in at the playoffs if the season were to end today. Fortunately, that's not the situation we're in. We're only 28 games into the season. And as we talked about, we do have Bo Horvat coming back off of the injured list. which hopefully will help us as we've got back-to-back games on the road in the Northeast against New York and the Flyers. But good to have Horvat back. Looking at the rest of the injury list, still a month or two away for Hronek and Larkin. Caleb Jones hopefully will have him back by mid-December, given that we're losing right now a couple starting defensemen. Certainly will be good to get Jones back. But Hronek and Larkin are more important players, and unfortunately we're probably looking at mid to late January before we get either of those guys back. December is going to be a really big test for us. You can see we've only got 4 home games in the entire month. So with the long road trips and the frequent road games that we're going to have over the course of this month, particularly with the back-to-backs against the Islanders and the Flyers, back-to-backs on the road against the Sharks and the Canucks, going to be a pretty difficult month of December here, potentially for the Blackhawks. So if we can kind of hold our own, remain right on the edge of the playoff race when we get to the end of this month, I think we'd actually be feeling pretty good about how it went. And after the good month of November, Rocky Wirtz satisfied with how we're doing, the fans more satisfied with how we're performing, and the clique has also broken up. So I think that means that, no issues at all with team harmony, very harmonious right now. Obviously was strange that we had to move on from our longtime superstar and our captain in Patrick Kane, but seems like the locker room is a much better place than it was before. And, we've been investing heavily in our monthly decisions, trying to maximize player happiness, which hopefully with the combination of the big investment in team morale, the team playing better, continuing to sell out every game, and the fact that we did invest in the offseason in some staff that was better in player management than some of the people that we previously had. Hopefully all that is combined to get the locker room to a better place, and hopefully over the course of this month it will help result in some good performances on the ice for these Blackhawks. And a really nice start to the month of December for the Blackhawks. Anytime you can get a win on the road, it's a positive thing. And winning on the road back-to-back and outscoring our opponents 7-1, certainly a good way for us to start off this month when we're going to be on the road quite frequently, as we've talked about. And Caleb Jones is now back, so that is good news. Have the veteran defenseman back on the active roster. And you can see Hronek is recovering pretty quickly. Looks like he's only 2 to 3 weeks away, although unfortunately the top offensive player on our team, Dylan Larkin, is still probably about a month and a half, 2 months away from making his return. It looks at this point we'd be lucky to get him in late January. I guess the positive thing for us as far as his timing is that, we're going to have the All-Star break there, and then maybe we'll get him back right after the All-Star break. Unfortunately, we'll probably only have him for a little bit of a while before the break for the Olympics. That's why there's so many games being jammed into the month of December this year to try to get ready for that disruption to the season. Taking a look at the month of December, you can see we won 2, then we lost 3, just beat Seattle, and now we are home against the Sabres before, unfortunately, spending most of the rest of the month on the road. Well, one piece of bad news for the Blackhawks as we begin 2026, Taylor Radish, who we had released to make room for Cole Sillinger, or traded him away actually to make room for Cole Sillinger, was just named the Player of the Month in the National Hockey League. So definitely hurts to have him gone. That said, given that we were on the road for good chunks of the month of December, it was a pretty successful month. You can see we lost two back-to-back road games to San Jose and Vancouver on the day before Christmas Eve and Christmas Eve, but then did bounce back to beat Tampa Bay and on the road in Pittsburgh to get two wins to close out the month. Taking a look at the standings as the new year begins, 49 points, tied for second in the Central Division. Would be in the playoffs if the season were to end today, so that's the good news. Do have a tough game coming up on the road at Carolina to start off the new year. Their 53 points leads every team in the Eastern Conference, so that will be a good challenge for our Blackhawks. Is the month of January and the year of 2026 kickoff here. Things look like they may be starting to turn on the injury front too. Hronek is day to day. I would think after this game against Carolina, we will probably have him back for our next game home against the Vegas Knights this weekend. You probably did see that we're still 2 to 3 weeks away from getting Larkin back, so I think the hope and expectation that I outlined not that long ago that maybe we get him back after the All-Star break is pretty realistic for us to think about. It's been a decent year for the Blackhawks so far. As I mentioned, we'd be in the playoffs if the season were to end today, so that's positive. Check in on our top scorers a little more than midway through the season. The new addition, Mitch Marner, 18 goals and 18 assists. The 18 goals leads the team. 36 points leads the team. The versatile, excellent offensive defenseman Quinn Hughes, second on the team with 32 points, including 25 assists. Luke Kunin definitely having a much better sophomore season with the Blackhawks than his first year with us last year. Bo Horvat has also been more productive than he was a year ago, and also thus far healthier than he was a year ago, which is nice to see. Cole Sillinger, who, as I mentioned, we did pick up when we picked him up as a free agent and decided to move on from Radish, has been solid for us and is a young player that has a lot of potential, so good to see him doing well. Gustav Forsling, the versatile defenseman, also has 23 points. A couple guys who probably would qualify as disappointing. Konechny has played 42 games, but only 19 points, making his debut for us this year. I'd say that's a little bit disappointing, given the money that we paid him and the fact that until we picked up Marner at the very beginning of September, Konechny was going to be our big acquisition for this offseason. The youngster Korchinski, the 21-year-old defenseman, -8 on the year, has contributed scoring-wise, though, with 18 points in 35 games. Has gotten probably some extra playing time with the injuries we've had to the defensemen, but with hopefully the return soon of Mr. Hronek, that could impact his playing time a little bit. But all in all, I think it's been a solid start to the season for the Blackhawks. Certainly not exceptional, but we are in a position where it looks like if things keep going the way they've been going, we're not going to be relying on winning on the last day of the season to get us in the playoffs like we did last year. Hopefully we'll be able to rest a little easier come late March and early April, but still a lot of hockey to be played between now and then, and we'll find out how it all goes in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great night or day.